you guys hear me okay? All right. So disappointed that you can hear me, right? So thank you. You're in the home stretch. This is the last piece, unless you're going on the neighborhood tour. So, by the way, if you are staying for that, don't worry about timing. We are the ones hosting that, so we will take you out as soon as we're done with this session. And we get the best part. We get to review money, and that's how you'll be able to, or not be able to, but that's how you're going to be concluding your day today. So I'll have Sam help me here. We can get JDs, but we can't guarantee that you're going to be able to operate this kind of machinery, stuff. All right. So we still have, like I said, we're still working with the Slido system. So as questions pop up, please feel free to start submitting those, and then Jaren and I will be fielding those questions. So just by the way, this is Jaren Smith. I don't believe you've necessarily formally met him, but he is one of basically a collection of people that you actually work with in terms of financial aid. So just so you're aware, we are the College of Law within the University of Utah, right? And I know that seems kind of like it's self-explanatory, but understand that we function somewhat independently from the university, and in other aspects we are integrated completely, right? And I say that because we have bodies like the American Bar Association, et cetera, that kind of, that things that the main campus don't have to worry about. With that said, we have some parts or aspects of financial aid that are handled mostly through our office, and anything that's basically federal or through FAFSA, that's handled by main campus financial aid. And so in terms of between now and the time you actually start school, these contacts, basically me and Shelly Reese, who's actually with our main campus financial aid, are the people you want to contact. Me specifically regarding your scholarships, Shelly specifically regarding your the administration of your financial aid, and when you submit your FAFSA application. If you've already done that, any questions related to FAFSA, you'll want to direct them to Shelly. Jaren will be someone that is also in-house. So once you guys are matriculated or start school and you're we're processing your financial aid, if you have questions related to your scholarships or things that are mostly in-house, he can handle those, especially as you're entering your second and third year. Does that make sense? Okay. So as I indicated, you'll want to touch base with either Shelly and I until you start school, but note that Shelly does come to our office once a week on Wednesdays from 9 to 3. And this, you can feel free to contact her with this information basically any day. But all right, so what are we going to be covering today? Processing, right? So processing of your financial aid, how that works, your loans, for those of you who haven't, just kind of want to know a little bit more about that, timelines, as well as scholarships. And so Jaren will actually be taking the lion's share of most of the loans and processing stuff, and then I'll jump back on board once he covers that information. Yeah.
Is that, do I need to click it? Like Isabel said, we're good with school things, not so good with technology. All right. So, getting ready for financial aid. If you haven't already submitted your FAFSA, do so as soon as possible, right? So the current priority deadline for this upcoming year is passed, right? It was February 1st. So if you haven't already started that process, just make sure you get going on that as soon as you can. If you do need the code for the University of Utah, there it is, 003675. And then just be aware, if you're not aware, on occasion as you file the FAFSA, you can be checked for verification. And really what that is just, the Department of Education really just says, what I need to verify is that your tax information is correct. So you just have to gather all that information and submit it to FAFSA, right? It's not very often that happens, but just be aware that that can happen. So just make sure you have tax documents ready in case that does. If you do have verification happen, your financial aid does not get processed until that is completed. Excuse me. So we, at least the main campus Office of Financial Aid should begin awarding those packages next week or the week after. So that's when you'll start seeing the kind of loan that you would be approved for in the upcoming year. You'll receive an email from them to your University of Utah email account when that's all been complete. And again, through CIS, if you've been on the admitted student page, which you're here, so you've been on the admitted student page, you can log into CIS, and that's where you would see that award letter. And remember that once you do receive that letter, you do have to accept it. You can choose to reduce the amount of loans that you're receiving, or you decline that aid altogether. There is an online orientation. Again, you'll receive instructions for all of that. So just make sure that you're checking those boxes going through that process, as well as completing the promissory note, which is, if you've taken out loans before, it's really just saying that you promise to pay back the loans that you do borrow. And then just keep a copy of all those for your own records. So when you log into Student Services, into CIS, you'll hear our vocabulary. These are called tiles. So the tile that you click on is financial aid award letter, and that's where it'll show you your awards, and you click to accept, decline, or reduce those awards. And again, if you do have any specific questions related to those awards, your federal awards, you'll direct those to Shelley Reese. So just numbers, looking at cost of attendance. So resident, a little over $28,000, non-resident, a little over $37,000. And there is a breakdown of those living costs depending on your scenario. So you do, and again, just a further breakdown of some of those numbers. So your most expensive living cost is going to be off campus. As we go, if you're coming on the tours, we'll talk a little bit about some of the numbers and pricing of things. But you can, if you want to have a private room, you should plan to be spending somewhere between $800 up to $1,100 per month for that housing in the different parts of Salt Lake. And then you see numbers for books. We do include numbers for travel and some miscellaneous. Again, these are numbers that are essentially added to the cost of attendance to help give you a buffer so that if you do need to take a certain amount of loans, that there's some buffer in there for you to take out that money. Or if you recognize that you don't need $10,000 for your living expenses, that's when you would go in and potentially reduce your loan offer. Okay? And just on a financial aid note, and just financial security thing, it's never wise to just see your loan offer and click accept. Go through those numbers, make sure that's the number that you want to take out. Because you can receive up to the cost of attendance in loans, but if you don't need that number, right, it's not necessarily financially wise for you to take out that full number. It's a school loan, and that's an educational loan, so that money should go towards education, not towards car payments, not towards like your mortgage, things like that. Obviously, it is put in there, but if you don't need that money per month to go towards your mortgage, don't take it out additionally as part of your loan. So just some budget things. This is over a 9-month period, so this is looking at August through April, May. So it's the fall and spring semesters. There's an additional portion of math that we need to do if you're going to attend in the summer. Again, just some details there that you can increase that cost of attendance depending on your need. For example, depending on the age of children. And then just be aware that you can't receive more financial aid than the total cost of attendance. So, and here's the number specifically for summer. As a resident, plan on 7,300, non-resident 94, 9,500. And again, there's the broken down expenses for those different scenarios. And this is all, I believe you can get all of these numbers online. And there, just again, those same numbers for the non-tuition part of that breakdown of the cost of attendance. So, as I said before, right, you take out a car loan to pay for your car, right? You take out a mortgage to pay for your house. You take out student loans to cover your costs as a student. So things that should not be included in your, well, cannot, they're not allowed as part of your cost of attendance. A car payment, support of a spouse and family, payment on current consumer debt, prior consumer debt, and any time that you're not enrolled, you wouldn't be taking out loans for that portion of time or relocating. So there are a few repayment options for your loans. Right, there's the unsubsidized direct loans, Grad Plus, and then private loan programs. Obviously, I study higher education. So when we talk about loans, federal loans are your way to go if you're going to do loans, right? Because you have government protection and different pathways of paying off those loans that are not provided to you in a private sense, unless for whatever reason you are absolutely spectacular with understanding how loans work and you know that you can accomplish amazing things with a private loan. It's not the wisest thing to be doing, okay? But again, that's your choice. You can do as you desire with your loans. For those unsubsidized loans, you can borrow up to $20,500 per year. There's essentially no credit eligibility unless, for whatever reason, there is some major big red flag when you fill out the FAFSA. You're going to be awarded a federal loan. Interest is unsubsidized. It accrues simple, and then it capitalizes when you enter repayment. So that's 6 months after graduation. Okay, and if you don't know, capitalize means that your interest recalculates on the entirety of the loan owed at that point. Okay. So the current numbers, as far as the interest rates, you're going to be looking for 2018, 2019 was 6.6%. Grad Plus loans, again, just those numbers. You can take up to the cost of attendance minus any other financial aid that you receive. Same thing, accrues simple interest when dispersed and then capitalizes when entering repayment. And for 2018, 2019, that interest rate was 7.6%. And really just the requirements for that Grad Plus loan. You can't have any adverse credit based on review of at least one credit report from a reporting agency. Adverse credit is defined as currently 90 days or more delinquent on repayment of any debt with a total combined balance greater than $2,085. Have any debt discharged in bankruptcy during the past 5 years, and evidence of a default, foreclosure, tax lien, repossession, wage garnishment, or a write-off of a Title IV debt during the past 5 years. And definitely become familiar with the different types of repayment programs. You can do fixed repayment, graduated, extended, income contingent. Those are kind of the income-based programs are the most common thing that you'll see right now. Again, income-based repayment is available with federal loans. So if you go with private loans, it's not likely that you would have an income-based repayment when you enter repayment. Pay-as-you-earn, revised pay-as-you-earn. There's just a few different calculations on how those numbers work out. And again, any questions for that, you can go to the Federal Student Financial Aid website, or you can contact the Office of Financial Aid for specifics on loans. So back to Isabel to go over some timelines. Oh yeah, do you want me to go through some of those?
All right, so in terms of timelines, right, he already covered the which hopefully you would have completed by now. Is there anyone here who has not completed their FAFSA application? One person. So regardless, I mean, if you're in a position where you are not in need of completing your FAFSA, that's great, but I will actually give you an incentive to do it. just because there are some factors that you should consider in completing it. But if you don't need to, do that, then just be aware that the preferred date was in February. In terms of our process, so we awarded all first round scholarship offers already. So anyone who would have received a Merit on Entrance scholarship knows about it already. So if you had any questions about, well, when can I hear about scholarships, know that for first round scholarship recipients, their basically their seat deposit due date is next Friday, April 5th. For those who have not received a Merit on Entrance scholarship during the first round, those awards will not be going out, and we will enter a second round of scholarship offerings after the April 5th date. Because at that point, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be recalculating or recomputing our available funds and going out with the second round of scholarship offers. Okay? And so, as Jaren indicated, financial aid loan packaging will begin hopefully sometime early in April. Know that when you look at that, if you've been awarded a scholarship from our office and if you decide to accept it, that will not be reflected on your financial aid loan packaging, because that's not part of it. That's a scholarship that we don't release until basically the week before you start school-ish. So you want to actually see that for a long time. So don't be concerned if we've made an offer and you accept it, you still have that money. Okay. Covered second round scholarships, and then this is where I was going. If we look at the April 15th date for our need-based scholarships, if you've been awarded a Merit on Entrance scholarship, you are not necessarily ineligible for need-based scholarships. So I actually always encourage everyone to complete the FAFSA so that they could submit their need-based scholarship application, and that's directly through our office. So just be aware that that application is due April 15th, and we don't begin processing that until a week or two after that. But we do need you to complete your FAFSA application so that we can determine what your need actually is. This is something that you can apply for each year because it's not guaranteed that you're going to have the same award amount every year. It's just going to depend on what your need is based on the information that you submit in your FAFSA each year. Okay, but just be aware that those award amounts come in anywhere between $300 to up to $4,000. So, and we inevitably, Jaren knows this by now, we inevitably always send out continued announcements, just like, submit your applications even past the deadlines, just because we do have a good pocket of funds available there that unfortunately our students are just not taking advantage of. And so, residency. For those, how many of you are out of state? All right. And so for those of you who are considering establishing residency for tuition purposes, know that you have to submit your application no later than July 1st. And I'll kind of touch on that a little bit. So we spoke about the need-based scholarships. As I indicated, they're strictly need-based. You must complete the FAFSA and then the form that I believe most of you should have gotten an email about that, right? Anyone who did not? Okay, good. And then our Merit on Entrance scholarships. So if you have questions about how that works, essentially you don't need to submit an application. We base it off of your JD application. And so we've already discussed that we'll be entering the second round of scholarship review the second week of April. And for those students who are awarded those scholarships, we will extend or change the seed deposit due date for candidates who receive second round scholarship offers. And then second and third year scholarships, just be aware that we do have awards that are available to students for second and third year. As you could see in 2019 or 2018-19, we awarded over 90 awards in that. But those are our continuing education, basically, scholarships. But just if you have questions about what we considered, some require applications, some require nominations, some are actually considered automatic of sorts if you fit certain criteria and you don't have any other scholarship preclusions of sorts. And we can discuss that in more detail if those questions are starting to come in. But in terms of what those awards look like, or where, what we're considering, the things that we're considering are like academic, leadership, community service, because some of these scholarships are based off of those factors. And then just be aware that the University of Utah, the graduate school, they have a fellowship and scholarship offerings as well. All right, so back to residency. And so for the class of 2021, which is the class that came in before you, we began what's called the flat tuition program. And so for flat tuition, what that did, it impacted residency mostly for those who are coming in from out of state, because I have yet to see someone who is classified as a resident and then says, I want to be classified as an out-of-state candidate. That just doesn't happen, right? So just be aware that once you've been classified as, or you've been given the designation as out-of-state, or whatever designation you're given, you are not eligible to reclassify after you begin your first year of law school, basically after you begin law school, period, unless you meet basically 3 criterias. And those are basically, one pertains specifically for the students that are specifically to Utah and fall under a DACA program through the state, and they graduated from here. So those are very, very specific details, but that's one of them. The other one is, of course, the military exception. And then the third one would be for students who are members of a tribe from a neighboring state. So those are essentially the 3 exceptions for the ability to classify after you start school. But know that you do have an ability to reclassify before you start school. And that is where I was making a reference to the July application submission for the Office of Residency. And so essentially what you have to do is submit documentation that demonstrates that you have established domiciliary ties with the state. Evidence of that would be things like the driver's license, verification, or vehicle registration, voter registration, etc. Know that you have to have these documents by no later than May 1st. The application is due July 1st. So the establishing domiciliary ties comes before the deadline for the application. Know that another typical requirement is the 12-month presence. And so obtaining this documentation is not sufficient to establishing reclassification. You should have a 12-month presence before the term that you start school. Okay. And then in reference to flat tuition, so it's basically based off of a 2-block system. So when you see your tuition bill, you're going to see, right, block 1 and block 2. Block 1 covers credits 1 to up to 8, and then block 2 will cover credits 9 to up to 16. So anything above and beyond 16 for the fall and spring, you are paying per credit hour. Know that was based off of our 80 credits that you must complete to be able to obtain your JD, right? And so for those who have joint degrees or are taking classes that are non-law classes, know that what you're taking for law, that is subject to flat tuition. So be aware of that. That's very important. If you're taking courses in your MBA program or your MPP program, or you just decided to take another graduate class and get those credits transferred here to apply them towards the 88, you are paying whatever that college's tuition is. And so that doesn't fall under our JD flat tuition program. In terms of the summer, be aware that you can only take a maximum of up to 8 credit hours, so you will only be issued 1 block of tuition. There you would not have the option of taking anything above and beyond 8 credit hours. Okay. And then these are just to conclude, these are just some helpful sites for to learn more about repayment options as well as any other financial aid information. And then I do have another page. You guys, those of you who want this, you can feel free to take pictures of this. This is probably a little bit easier. That's probably a little bit easier than to write it down. And then we'll move over to our questions. I will say, if they are very scholarship-specific questions, and by what I mean by this is, if they are very unique questions to the student, I will probably be addressing those on a one-on-one basis after we conclude today.
So there's a few I can answer real quick. So on-campus housing options, I can tell you the University of Utah is actually getting rid of graduate school housing, minus a little area of family housing. They're starting to implement a live-on requirement for freshman students. So they have been recently changing graduate housing to freshman housing. But there's tons of housing just right around here. Walking distance, tracks that makes it a few minutes to get here. So you can live very close to campus for about the same price as what it was to live on campus. And then there was, when do you choose your repayment plan? When you get, during your last semester or last year of school, you'll actually have to go through what's called loan exit counseling. You may have had to do it when you completed, or as you've completed an undergraduate degree, where you do have to choose your repayment plan. You'd meet with a financial aid officer to go over those numbers, but that's when you would select your repayment plan.
All right, so I'll address some of these popular questions related to extensions on scholarship offer, basically on our seed deposit due date. If you have received a scholarship offer, no, we do not really extend seed deposit deadlines unless they're under very extraneous circumstances, like an unexpected medical situation, something like that. And in part, it's because of our tight budget. I mean, quite candidly, we also have a number of other students that are either on our waitlist pool and who have also been admitted, who have not been awarded a scholarship because we've already extended all of our first-round scholarship offers. And due to those budgetary constraints, we are not really in a position to extend scholarship deadlines. So just be aware of that. So what are your options? If you've been awarded a scholarship, you have basically 3 options, right? You can accept the scholarship and accept our offer of admission. As many of you know, that's going to be on April 5th. And then, so that's option 1. Option 2 is you can decline our scholarship offer but maintain your offer of admission. What that would do is that would automatically re-enter you into the second round of scholarship considerations. And one of 3 things can happen there. You can either be offered an award for the same value, potentially, something for higher value, which is not as likely, or something, or no scholarship offer at all. So it is somewhat risky to take that route, but it is an option for you. In that event, then you would, if you're re-awarded a scholarship offer, then you would essentially get a new seed deposit due date of sorts. And then your third option is just declining our offer of admission and our scholarship offer. So that, in a nutshell, is what you can anticipate in terms of whether, if you were hoping to submit an inquiry where hoping to get an extended seed deposit deadline. I can tell you that aside from a very difficult circumstance, we are not likely to extend that offer.
And one of the questions that relates to that, Isabel, is say a student takes a the LSAT again and gets a higher score, how would that impact their scholarship offer?
So yeah, I mean, in our process, that is not something we're necessarily going to reevaluate. You're welcome to contact our office and say, I am planning to sit for the March exam, which is what I'm guessing most of the candidates are looking to take, or potentially even the June exam. We cannot hold our budget hostage to see if someone's going to be sitting for a March exam. And it's also not fair to I'll revert back to the other students who are waiting to have notice of whether or not they're going to be receiving a second round scholarship offer, or our students that are waiting on the wait list. So in that circumstance, you're definitely welcome to if you haven't received a scholarship offer, I think they're actually might be more better situated of sorts for us to consider that second LSAT, just because they're going to be sitting for the LSAT. Was it last weekend or will it be this weekend? Those of you who know,
it's this weekend.
This weekend,
right.
And we're going to be able to see their LSAT score come up once it's released in the second round scholarship process. So I will say that your options are the same as I described earlier when we were discussing the inability for us to really extend seed deposit deadlines. And so, like I said, you can contact our office. We're not going to hold the scholarship offer hostage either. So, but we wish you best of luck in sitting for the second LSAT. And then, like I said, just let us know that you might want us to either, if you haven't received a scholarship offer, for us to withhold review of that scholarship consideration until after the March exam release date. But be aware that we, as soon as April 8th comes around, we are now starting the re-awarding process. We start that quickly. I mean, we spend the entire weekend recomputing our budget, and we hit the ground running immediately after. So does that answer the question, or are there still lingering questions about that?
Yeah.
Sure. So our general seed deposit due date is on April 12th. And so the question was whether if you're awarded a second round scholarship offer, does that
change your deposit deadline?
Your seed? So it will change it for those who are awarded a scholarship, but we can't hold our breath on it. I mean, the April 12th deadline is still a pretty hard deadline. And so know that we're going to continue to award throughout all of April. And there is a good chance, we've admitted a good number of candidates that we were just unfortunately unable to award in the last month, because, or not the last month, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, because we had we've had extended all of our scholarship offers. Yes.
5th, which deadline is April 5th and which deadline?
So April 5th is for those who have received a merit on entrance scholarship during the first round, and you would know because you received notice of that. And for the general seed deposit due date, just for anyone who's been admitted, generally without the merit on entrance scholarship, that is April 12th. Okay, so if you receive a merit on entrance scholarship, does that preclude you from receiving additional scholarship funds during the second round? I wouldn't say that it necessarily precludes you, but you are certainly not considered, because you have been awarded a scholarship. If you accepted, we would not enter you into the second round. We would enter you into the second round if you choose to decline your scholarship offer and maintain your offer of admission. Does that make sense? And then LSAT, we've already discussed. So is placing a deposit a binding acceptance to attend the University of Utah? Yes, it is. So we are not okay with double depositing. We actually participate in I guess I wouldn't call it necessarily a consortium agreement with the Law School Admission Council and its schools, but there is a process that we actually participate in where participating law schools, I won't say that all of them participate in this because that would not be accurate, but those of us who do participate, we can actually see where you've deposited money if they're in our schools that do participate, as well as if they disclose the information, the value of their scholarship awards. Again, that's only if they submit that level of information. And so if you deposit with us and we see the name come up that you've deposited somewhere else, our office will be contacting you, letting you know the process of our scholarship, our scholarship process. And for those of you who received a scholarship from us, you have received frequently, or an FAQ. If you haven't reviewed it, I encourage you to do so because it actually addresses some of these issues. And then you also received a memo. That memo also includes several details related to this as well. So just be aware. So how do we anticipate out-of-state tuition changing this year as the rates were not released for next year? Yeah, it's not that they're not released, it's that they haven't been determined. And so as soon as they're determined, we do give that information to the students immediately after. We'll publish the new information on our website literally as soon as we get it. But that's information that the Board of Regents has to decide on, and then we make it available to students. In terms of what we can anticipate, I just think it's too premature. I don't even want to try to give a forecast of this, but just in general, I would say that we have historically seen an increase of anywhere between 3 to 4% increase in tuition at the University of Utah, and of course that impacts the College of Law. We do not, so the question is, do we require parent information on need-based scholarships?
So in order to apply for a need-based scholarship, we have to have a FAFSA. So if you don't fill out your FAFSA, then you can't fill out a need-based application. This is separate, right? Because as a professional student, filling out the FAFSA does not award you scholarships or grants, okay? Your only loans can be offered to you as a professional student, actually through federal aid, okay? But in order for us to award you a merit-based scholarship, you still have to complete the FAFSA. So any information that is required of you on the FAFSA is going to be required as part of that application. You don't have to supply that information separately to us because it's already been included in computing your estimated family contribution.
Well, and this is, so for graduate school, you don't have to submit parental income information to complete the FAFSA. So just be aware of that. That is accurate even if you're underage, really. But I mean, we've never really had that happen. So just be aware of that. And there are law schools that do require that you submit in your submission for the FAFSA parental income information. We are not one that does. So when you see that populate as you're completing the FAFSA, if you haven't already, know that we don't require parental income information. So, so the question is, will the second round scholarship offers be made before April 12th seat deposit? We can't guarantee that necessarily. We can guarantee the computation, like us going through the process already, like sometime in that week, but we cannot guarantee that all of the offers will be made by April 12th. It's just, honestly, you guys, it's so impossible for us to do that. Even if it's difficult to see on your end because you don't see everything we have to do on our end and how many students we have to take into consideration. But know that the general seat deposit due date of April 12th does not carry the binding process of those who have a merit on entrance scholarship that have to submit their application, their seat deposit on April 5th. So that is a different process. So for those students, you know, we understand, right? You haven't been awarded a scholarship, so we don't hold you to the same standard. So to clarify, if I'm a non-resident during my time of acceptance, I cannot change my resident status during law school. So no, that is not what I said. You have two options really to reclassify. You can either do it before you start law school, and two, if you have already started law school, you would have to fall in under one of those three exceptions that I described to be able to for you to be able to reclassify. Does that make sense for whoever submitted the question?
And just to kind of clarify as well on that, some of the numbers of it, because I'm sure it's gone through your head, wait, I can't reclassify, like I'm going to be paying a ton more tuition now simply because I can't reclassify. In previous years, the difference between resident and non-resident tuition was much greater. So students typically would come to school for a year, pay the non-resident tuition, obtain residency, and then pay the in-state tuition. So on the flat rate, the block system, what we've done is essentially reduced the total of the non-resident tuition so that it's about the same as what you would have been paying if you paid the larger non-resident number and then paid resident tuition for the next 2 years. So it's only it's really only like $1,000 or $2,000 different than what tuition would have been in previous years if you had been a non-resident for 1 year and a resident for the other 2.
So another question about reconsideration. If I received a scholarship but would like to be reconsidered for a greater amount, is it helpful for the scholarship committee to have information about scholarship offers from other schools? You know, here again, if you choose to decline the scholarship offer that we have extended before the April 5th deadline, or even if we award this during the second round, you are welcome to submit the information. Know that if you're going to submit that information, one, we don't negotiate scholarships. We believe that we make fair offers from the onset. But two, if you're going to submit scholarship awards, some candidates are very clever to screenshot part of the scholarship offer where we understand what that means. You're not showing us the full thing. So if you're going to submit that information, we expect to see the full scholarship offer for second round scholarship considerations, because we're not, you know, one thing we want to see really what is the other school offering you with all of its exceptions and its parameters and all of that. So a screenshot is not, in our point of view, the full scholarship offer. So be aware of that. And here again, we're only going to really take that into consideration for second round scholarship offers. So another question is, when you accept a merit on entrance scholarship, are you accepting an award for each year or just for the first year? It depends on what you were awarded. So we would have to, you know, I'm happy to sit down and review the scholarship award with you, but not all scholarship awards are the same. So it would just depend on what you were awarded. If it was a 3-year renewable scholarship, you would know that as well, because it's broken down into year 1, year 2, and year 3. So when you're accepting a scholarship offer, you are accepting for year 1, for year 2, and for year 3. So if that clarifies that concern, hopefully that was in relationship to the breakdown in the 3-year scholarships. I get thrown off by when they press like, because it moves them. Some of you are asking, you know, if we got a merit on entrance scholarship, but we are sure we will not qualify for the need-based scholarships, do we still need to fill out the FAFSA? No, I mean, it's up to you. That's for your benefit. It's not that's not a requirement from us. Just know that if you want us to consider you for a merit on entrance scholarship, then you do have to complete the FAFSA. What happens if you decide to attend another law school? after you pay the seed deposit for the use. So our seed deposits are non-refundable, right? And that's actually very strictly stated in our information, but I'm not entirely sure what the question is here, other than like we're not, if the question is, do you take punitive action against us after we submit a seed deposit and we decide to attend another school? No, we do not. I mean, if you decide to attend another school and not respect our policies and procedures, that's on you, but no, understand that that's bad form, right? It's just like if someone tells you, hey, can you pick me up at 5 p.m. at this location, and you never show up. This is no different. We're asking you to understand our policies, to abide by them, and if you choose to not do that, that's going to be strictly on you. There are some schools, however, be aware of this, and we're not one of these, that can report you to the irregularities committee with the Law School Admission Council and the American Bar Association. So that will impact you as a potential candidate if it's reported to the American Bar Association. Once you 3 or 4 years down the line, if you have this irregularity, here again, because it is bad form, right? But we're not one of the schools that participates in that. So. Do we accept deferrals? Yes. Well, not necessarily accept deferrals. That's on a case-by-case basis. So you have to submit, a petition specifically either to me or once our Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid returns. You are welcome to submit your reasons for requesting a deferral, and you can email me right now, not necessarily right now, but when you have a chance, asking for additional information, and I'm happy to submit that. Know that because we do it on a case-by-case basis, we do want a full understanding of why you're requesting the deferral, because our application specifically states that you're applying for the year when you're intending to apply. And so, but have we extended them before? Yes, we have. If I accept my initial scholarship offer, must I turn down scholarships offered by other law schools? So I kind of feel like I'm beating the bush right now, right? It is a binding process, and we do delineate what our expectations are, and so if you choose to go out and accept other scholarship offers, that's on you. We're not gonna go on this witch hunt, right? It's totally gonna be up to you how you decide to proceed in terms of how you approach other schools. But just be aware and ask them, are you guys likely to report me to an irregularities committee? And if they are, just be very careful. And I can tell you, as an admissions professional in a law school, these conversations have been popping up across the United States. And it's probably one of the this and the binding early admission process is one of the most common topics that is being brought up. And I know that other schools are definitely pushing for more reporting in this process. But here again, that's going to be up to you. Do we expect, if you are going to be accepting a scholarship from us, that is you telling us you are demonstrating an intent to attend our school. And that's all I can say about that. So if I have not lived in Utah for 12 months, is it too late to establish residency if I move to Utah and get a driver's license before May 1st? I can't say that, and none of us would really be able to say that with certainty. We would just put you in contact with our residency office, and they'll ask more probing questions to determine where you fall in terms of, the likelihood of your ability to reclassify for tuition purposes before you start school. Know that, like a driver's license, I could tell you just by that information alone, that's not enough to establish domiciliary ties. there is, like I indicated, that 12-month physical presence. It is up to them to determine whether or not you fall into an exception in their process. So if we don't receive a first round scholarship offer, is the binding decision the second seed deposit date? So we don't have a second seed deposit due date. We have an orientation fee due date. But what I can tell you is, if you're awarded a Merit-on Entrance scholarship during the second round, you will have a seed deposit due date, and that is a binding process for whenever, whether it's late April or in the middle of May, whatever the seed deposit due date we give you, if you're accepting a scholarship from us, it's still a binding process. So if I decline my scholarship but choose to keep my offer of admission, when is the seed deposit deadline? And so if you choose to go that route, we still bump you to the April 12th deadline. So just be aware of that, because at that point you are just entering, logistically what you're doing is you're entering our second round scholarship process, or not necessarily our second round scholarship process, you are just entering our regular candidate pool. And so you would be bumped into the April 12th deadline. Okay, and that is the end of the questions here. Like I said, you are welcome to contact my office, any one of us, Jaren, Mary, me. We're happy to discuss your scholarships between now and next Friday for those of you who have your April 5th deadline. And we can discuss any of these other issues or concerns in more detail, but I also don't want to hold you hostage, especially if you're not going to stick around for the neighborhood tours. For those of you who are, we're just going to be meeting down in the cafe literally in a few more minutes, and we'll be departing, I want to say in about 15 minutes. That way we can give you some time to move around, use the restroom, and then we'll head out. Thank you so much for coming. We hope you enjoyed your day.